few weeks ago I made my nan a top out of some gauze fabric that I bought because she really liked it, so I thought, oh, I'll make her a top out of it. And I had about 90 centimetres left out of 2 metres by the time I'd actually drafted her top and made it. I had about 90 centimetres left, and it really wasn't a lot of fabric because it was a funny shape as well. So where I cut out bits for hers, there was like little bits all stuck all over the place, so I didn't actually have a lot of material to work from. But I wanted to make a top out of this material because I thought it'd be cute if we were matching, so if I had the same top, well, a top in the same material as my nan, we could sort of match. That would be kind of sweet. But yeah, I didn't have a lot of material to work with, so what I thought I'd do is, rather than draft a pattern and maybe waste fabric because it didn't look right, I thought I'd take one of the patterns that I already have and adapt it, and it was really just as simple as chopping off the bottom. So the pattern that I had was a McCall's pattern, and it's actually a full jumpsuit pattern, but I thought, well, if I chop it off at the waist, and what I'll do is, because it's not fitting at all, it's a really loose fitting pattern, I thought I'd stick some elastic in there, gather it around the waist just so that it's not sort of floating around, you know, sort of hanging around all over the place, so I thought I'd, you know, gather in at the waist. First thing I did was I traced it out onto some newspaper prints because I didn't want to cut out the pattern, because I might actually make a jumpsuit with it later on, so I didn't want to cut it up or anything, so I actually traced it out on some newspaper print that I had. I didn't make any changes really to like the size of the sleeves or anything like that. I quite like the way that it was. The only thing that would be different is because it's actually fastened with a zip at the front. I'd just close up the front, I'd just cut it on the fold, and then I wouldn't have to have any fastenings because it's really just loose fitting, it just fits on over top really, so I didn't really need any fastenings. Then I went ahead and cut it out on the material, so I played around with the placement of the pattern on the fabric, changed the fabric in different directions a couple of times just to see how much I could save of the material, because I didn't want to waste it if I didn't have to. So it just, you know, where to fold the fabric over, how I can make the most out of the material. I didn't really know if I wanted to add anything on at the end, because that's just generally the way I work really. I get to the end product and I think, oh, I could put this in or I could put that in. So I just wanted to make sure that I, you know, could save as much material as I possibly could. When I was happy with it, I cut it out, quite simple, just cut around the lines. This had a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance. I mean, I would have liked to have reduced that down to about 1 centimetre, but you know, just did it with the pattern at the moment. Wanted it to be nice and quick, so just stuck with the 1.5 centimetres. So I matched up the shoulder seams and the side seams, sewed them on the machine. That was with the standard stitch length that I've got. I think it's 2.5 millimetres, I think. Yeah, and I had some luckily I had some cotton left over from when I did my nan's top, so I had just about enough to finish this top with. And then of course just seam finish the edges, so I trimmed them up. And I just ran them through with a zigzag stitch. It didn't really need anything fancy. I mean, if you were going to go down the fancy route, then French seams would have been really nice. But I thought, well, zigzag's just fine, you know. I trimmed it nice and thin, so there's not actually a lot of seam there, and the zigzag just rolls over it. So you could do it on the overlock as well, but I don't actually have an overlocker, so zigzag stitch it was. Once that was all done and tidy, then I just simply moved on to finishing the sleeves, the sleeves really. And all I did that was I just made a rolled hem. So I just rolled it over like, I think it was like 6 millimetres I think. So I just folded that over and folded that over, pinned that in place. Didn't iron it because this is a gauze, and also the little metallic dots on there. If you put the iron on that, they disappear. Trust me, I've done it. And so I thought, yeah, I can't iron this, so I'm really just going to have to pin it nice and flat, put many pins in. First time I did it, I actually put the pins in the wrong way, so when I was sewing it through the machine, they were in the wrong direction, so I had to pull them out, and it was really a bit frustrating. So, you know, forward planning, I should have really changed that, but there we are. Then I moved on to the neckline. So the neckline, I did actually put a facing in, and I just made a very, very simple facing. I mean, it was kind of like a slapdash, let's just try it and see what it looks like type of facing. So the back, when I made my nan's, I actually redid a facing for the back. So I had this piece already cut out from my scrap pile that I literally just traced over, cut it out, and then I did the front how I would usually do it, and that's just trace the shape and cut out that shape out of the gauze. Again, I didn't actually fold over the edge of the gauze, you know, like some patterns tell you to like fold over and stitch folded edge on the facing. Instead I just zigzagged that because I wanted it to lie flatter than, say, if it was rolled, which actually it does, it really does. So it didn't need, for me, it didn't need that folding over. just zigzag stitching the edge of it just worked really fine. Sewed it on, turned it round, clipped the corner and turned it round, and then I top stitched around about 4mm away from the edge to keep it nice and flat. What I'd need to do after that is I'd actually need to stitch the facing to the top itself, to the front of the top itself, just to keep it flat, because yeah, it just sort of floated around, so I needed to make sure that that was attached to the facing, but I did that with just a simple whip stitch. And what's nice about the double gauze is because it's 2 layers of fabric, you can hide those stitches in between the 2 layers of fabric, so you don't actually see those stitches on the outside. Makes it nice and neat. And then of course the waistband. So the waistband was really simple. I just folded it up about 2 centimetres, so I've got a nice channel for the elastic. Sewed all the way around, left about an inch gap, I think, on the side seam so that I could put the elastic through. Once I threaded that elastic through, I made sure that it didn't come out by sticking a pin on the other side. Pulled it together, sewed it together so that of course you make that circle. And I thought it gathered really nicely. I think it's comfortable to wear, and it's just pulled the fabric in. It shows off the gathers of the fabric, well, the way that the fabric can gather. So yeah, it looked really quite nice. But I got to the point where I was going to just attach the I sewed up the edge of the channel in, and I got to the point where I was just going to put some stitches in on the elastic to make sure it doesn't move too much, and I realised that the elastic had actually twisted inside, and you know, you just think, oh my god, why? So I had to unpick that and then rethread the elastic, or try and make sure that the elastic was actually flat, then stitch it back together, then stitch up the channel again, and then sew on the side just some small stitches, just to make sure that the elastic doesn't move around the channel too much. So there's stitches on either side, and then there's one in the centre and one in the centre back as well, so just make sure that the elastic doesn't move. At this point I actually tried it on, and what I didn't like or felt a little bit uncomfortable with was the size of the neckline. So for me, because I'm short, it sort of went down a little bit too far. The V-neck went down a bit too far, so I wanted to sort of cover that up slightly. So I played around with a few options of putting like a modesty panel in. Didn't really like that idea, so instead what I did is I made some lacing to go on the front. So that was just simple. I made some loops with some scrap fabric, just some straps basically, and then just chopped it up, folded it over, stitched it to the V-neck, and then I made another long piece of a tube of the fabric with some of the scrap fabric, and then I'll just lace that through, and it's just covered it up that little bit, so it's a bit more modest for me. I don't feel so sort of uncomfortable with it, and yeah, actually when I put it on then I thought, oh, that looks a lot better. So this is a really nice simple top to make just from a simple adapted pattern that I had. I didn't want it to take too long because it was a really nice day outside, and being in Britain you've got to make the most of those days. So yeah, it was nice and simple. It's going to be a nice top to wear for the summer. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you like this video, and to subscribe if you like my channel. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.